Today, I will be talking about the compound effect. And the compound effect is, well, first off, there's a book about it that I read like a year ago, but I've been thinking about it today, and I thought I'd bring to you guys kind of the whole concept of the compound effect. I believe it's almost easier to explain in financial terms, so I'll give you this piece of information from this book first to kind of start us off. So it talks about the real cost of a $4 a day coffee habit over 20 years. In the year one, that's $1,000, $1,100 in 1 year. So in 20 years, that would be $20,000. Wrong. With the compound effect, in 20 years, a $4 a day coffee habit will cost you $50,000. And this is because of inflation, essentially, and more things, if depending on where you put it. But a dollar you spend a day in inflation terms is $5 in 20 years. So, I mean, that's just a little, think about that when you're buying something for $5 or $4 nowadays, especially something like coffee or something you really don't need. In 20 years, if you just didn't have that habit for 20 years, you could have $50,000. And obviously, it would need to be, it can't just sit in your bank account because that's not how, your bank account typically doesn't match inflation. But if you have it invested in something like an S&P 500 instead of coffee, a liability, putting it in an asset instead of a liability, it will compound and it will match inflation, and if it'll get to $50,000 in 4 years. So yeah, this isn't really a financial channel, but yeah, just be careful how you're spending your money. And I just kind of want to give that example for the compound effect. But it works the same way in life with building skills and improving. There's a story I like about a bamboo tree, and it grows for like 20 years in the ground. It doesn't come up out of the ground for 20 years. It's building strong roots in the ground. And then in 1 year, it grows like 50 feet. So if you just saw that bamboo tree, 1 year, you're like, wow, that thing it's on steroids. It's a super growing like tree. Like it just grows super fast. But in reality, there was 20 years of work behind the scenes that you didn't even see. So don't underestimate the small changes. There's another book called Atomic Habits, which if you haven't heard of this book, I would probably say you've heard of that book because that book is very popular. But it's kind of like the same concept, 1% better every day. If you get 1%, say you two people start right here. One person gets 1% better every day, and one person gets 1% worse every day. As they go forward over 20 years, that 1% is going to look big. And the person who used to be in the same spot will be that much of a difference. And it's kind of along the same lines of how the compound effect works with, small changes over the time, make big changes. Because, the first week, the person who's getting 1% better and 1% worse, you wouldn't even be able to visibly see the difference between them. They'd be almost the same person. But in a year, there'd be a little bit difference. And then in 5 years, they'd be a completely different person. And you would never even think that they were close in intelligence, wisdom, cognitive ability, all those things. So trust in the compound effect and don't give up too early, because a lot of people, I believe, in endeavors don't let the compounding gains come in. They'll do something for a year and they'll think, wow, these people, they haven't been doing anything for a year and we're like basically the same people. But they don't understand that in 2 years, the difference will be great. But they can only see in the short term, and they don't understand. Imagine if the bamboo tree, after 19 years of growing underground, said, you know what? Like, I've been doing this for so long and I'm not getting above ground. Like, why would I keep growing? And it just, died. It just gave up. I mean, obviously trees don't just do that, but say it did, it would have missed out on a 50-foot growth in 1 year because of all that work it put in on the front half. It would miss out on all the reward it would get on the back half. So remember that. and let your compounding gains come in, because a key component in the compound effect equation is time. You need time. So you can't just rush the compound effect, because time is a key component in the equation. So you need time in the compound effect. So don't just give up on your things early out in your endeavor, because you're not letting the compound gains come in. And obviously you're not going to see the difference if you don't give it time. You can't just bounce endeavor to endeavor into endeavor because you're not seeing any gains, or you hit the rough patch, because everything has rough patches. you know I forget where I heard it, but someone I heard say, you have to pick something where you can deal with the suck. You have to be able to deal, because everything has some suck to it. Everything you're not going to want to do every single day. So you have to pick something where when it gets difficult, you still want to do it. So you can let those compounding gains come into effect. Because if you give up too early, you're missing out on immense gains, because the compound effect hasn't taken effect yet. So just remember that, and make sure you're letting the compound effect take effect in your endeavors, and not and not giving up too early. Because if you give up too early, I think we've all seen that picture of the miner who's turning around one strike away from the gold. You don't want to be like that. And some people look like they're overnight successes, like that tree, but in reality, there was 20 years of work underground being put in. And it's like the same thing with cutting down a tree. The first swing of the axe is just as important as the last swing. The 10,000th swing might bring the tree down, but without that first swing, nothing would have happened. You never would have got to the 10,000th swing without the first swing. And without the 5,000th swing, you would have never got to the 10,000th swing. So if you give up along the way, imagine if you're cutting a tree, but you can't see the progress you're making, and you've done 9,999 hits, and you're just like, nothing's happening. Like, this is not going to work. Like, this is going to take a million more hits. I'm going to be dead before this thing falls. And you walk away. But in reality, you were one more axe swing away from getting to your goals, away from it all just compounding and seeing your reward in front of you. So don't give up too early on your endeavors, and make sure you look at your endeavors and what they entail. Epictetus tells us, if you really want, like, he asks, like, do you want to be an Olympic athlete? You shouldn't ask if you want to win an Olympic gold medal, because, people obviously, like, you wouldn't be mad if you won an Olympic gold medal. But he says, are you willing to train for 4 years? Are you willing to follow a strict diet? Are you willing to not drink alcohol? Are you willing to listen to your coach as if it was your doctor? Are you willing to do all that and then maybe get injured along the way? Or do all that and still not even win? You still not even get a bronze medal, never mind a gold medal. And if you look at all the negatives and all the things that might happen, and you say, yes, I am willing to potentially fail and give in to all these hardships to try to get the gold medal, then you are worthy of going for that goal. So don't just jump haphazardly into goals, because there's going to be dips, there's going to be hardships, there's going to be difficulties. And if you're not ready for those and you're not anticipating those, then once they come, they're going to hit you like a freight train, and you're not going to know how to deal with them. So you need to look at the future, predict the worst case scenarios. Say, like the Olympic athlete, are you willing to follow a strict diet for 4 years? If not, then you're not going to be an Olympic athlete. And it's just as simple as that. If you're not willing to listen to your coach, you're not going to be an Olympic athlete. It's just as simple as that. So a lot of people, see someone who's rich, see someone who's famous, see someone who has the life they potentially want to have, but they don't want to do what they did. You gotta do what they did to have what they have. And if you don't do that, then you're obviously not going to have what they have. It's like when someone gets a goal that you weren't going for, and then you're jealous. Like, you weren't striving for that goal. Like, it's like someone, gets praise, or someone gets an award and you're jealous. It's like, were you going for that award? Like, I thought you said you didn't care about that. Like, why would you be jealous if you don't care about it? So you need to see what battles you're fighting and focus on those battles and worry about what you can do. And if you don't want to do what they did, then you're not going to have what they have. So look at what someone like, if you want to be like Michael Phelps, look at what Michael Phelps did. And you'll have to do what he did to have what he has. And if you don't want to do what he did, then you're not going to have what he has. Or someone like, Joe Rogan, who's done like a billion podcasts, or anybody, anybody you can think of. Someone like Jeff Bezos, you know, if you want to have money like him, are you willing to sacrifice the time that he has sacrificed? Take the risks that he has taken? If not, then you're not going to be like Jeff Bezos. And if you are, you still probably won't be like Jeff Bezos because there's still so many variables outside of your control. But you have to at least be willing to do what he did to have what he has. So ask yourself that when you want to be somebody. Don't just think, oh, I want to have what they have, because everyone wants to have what some people have if they're, successful and looks like they're having a good time and having a good life. But if you're not willing to do what they did to get what they have, then you're not going to have what they have. And I know I'm beating a dead horse on that, but it's true. So let your compound effect take effect. Don't give up too early on endeavors. And this isn't a financial channel, but invest in the Roth IRA, S&P 500, and don't buy $4 coffees every day.